After a day or two in Reno, Nevada, my foster sister decided she wanted to go back home. I loved my foster family and the waterbed they provided for me. I loved being able to walk into the woods to smoke and write my thoughts down. But it was her real home and her real family, not mine. So we parted ways. I popped my hitchhiking cherry, figuring it was a good idea to get to California, where my grandpa lived. I knew he'd take me in. This was in early '84, and I was 17. The first dude to pick me up was an old man in a pacer. Once I was in the car, I noticed the back seat was folded down and sheets had been spread out on it, turning it and the pacer into a rolling bed. Really? I thought, after, of course, an inner ew. 3 blocks later, I had him drop me off. With maybe $5 to my name, 1 pair of pants, 2 shirts, all on at the same time and covered up by my overalls, a coat, and a pack of smokes, I had no choice but to hit the road again and hope for something better. All of this was happening on the outskirts of Reno. Next dude picked me up, and he seemed nice enough. He talked a lot about himself, which was good, because I was certainly not in the opening up kind of mood. Anyway, he got me something to eat and drink at a local convenience store, along with another pack of smokes. Then he got me a motel room. We talked and smoked inside for a bit, and then he had to go to work. I waited for about an hour, then I took a shower, as I developed a new plan. There was no way I was staying in a motel room that some dude got for me after he took the key with him. There was no telling when he'd be back or what he expected, so I locked the screen door to the room and the main door. I tried, but I failed to block the door with the chair in the room because it wasn't tall enough to block the door, as I didn't appreciate the thought of his intentions. I tried making it so he'd have to pay by using a different approach with my pain baton in a survivalistic kind of way. I flushed the hand towel in the toilet trying to clog it up so he'd be charged for it, and I stood there and laughed as I witnessed the most powerful toilet in existence. It sucked that hand towel down like it was tissue paper. Damn! I took the other towels and the shower curtain with me and did it the Beatles way, making my retreat out the bathroom window. I walked for about a mile or so and started to hitch again. Twilight had settled into the evening when another car pulled over. This time all I saw was the lit-up dashboard in the evening sky, and it looked 100% like the dude who had just gotten me in the motel room. I panicked. I took off up this grassy hill. I wasn't about to stick around to find out whether it was the same dude or not. I climbed the big country post type of fence and chilled out in the field. I could see a house in the distance about 500 yards away, so no worries. I lit a smoke, calming myself down so I could courage myself up to do it again. Around the 3rd cigarette, lights to a vehicle parked near the house came on. I kept my cigarette cherry low and crouched down a bit myself as the car drove down the long country driveway. That's when I noticed the car was a cop car. Oh, shit! My crouch became snake-like in the foot-high dry grass, and I was unnoticed. My 4th round of hitching brought about a calm, soothing, and ordinarily majestic peak of a mountain. This nice man stopped to pick me up because he thought I was a relative of his. He took me back to his home where I met his wife and daughters, and they gave me something to eat and said I could make all the phone calls I needed to get in touch with my family the next day, as that evening was late. He had his youngest daughter bunk with her sister so I could have her bed, which was in the same room. When I woke up, I was surrounded by every type of magical stuffed animal that a 5-year-old could send hope and love through, It was beautiful. I also discovered the entire family was gone. They left me a note explaining to make myself at home, make my phone calls, and they'd be home later that afternoon after they got off of work. It was unbelievable. How fortunate was I to come across such another loving, trusting family. I took a shower and made some calls, and the next day I had a flight booked for Virginia with a layover in either Denver or Colorado or Chicago. During this layover, I did what others did in the waiting area, doing the people-watching thing. I visually scoped the scene and noticed a guy reading one of those self-help type books about positive thinking. Well, I was still in a flippant mood full of piss and vinegar and decided to test the book's theory with another one of my self-science experiments. I had had practice runs with this before, but here was a unique opportunity with a complete stranger who was just sitting and waiting. He looked to be about in his mid-20s. I sat as normal and relaxed as possible, flipping through some magazine while focusing on not looking directly at the guy. I knew even then the bottom animalistic nature of humans was rooted in the reproductive area, yes, and that men have a harder time keeping everything under wraps, as it were. So my experiment began. In my head, I focused my thoughts in his directions and made them sexual in nature. Within the first minute, there was a mild shuffling in his seated position. Observing this without direct observation, I informed myself that this could just be coincidental, so I focused harder on my thoughts. This time, intensifying the animalistic qualities. Shuffle, 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 and boom! Within 5 minutes, I received confirmation that my experiment was a success. I watched this poor guy, said in reflection, head towards the men's room. I sat there pleased as punch with myself for about 5 minutes, when I started thinking about the scales of proven yet unproven. It started to balance out by making me see that for as much as my first thought may be true, and he relieved himself of some bodily fluids, the other side of the scale may be just as valid in that the fluid he released could have just been pee. And since there was no opportunity of asking him what the end result was, I had to keep thinking both thoughts were as plausible as the other. Either he sensed me, or he had to go pee. While testing the power of thought and learning its overwhelming potential, I may have overstepped my and other people's boundaries at the same time. But without doing it, I would never have learned what I now know. Life moved on, as did I, to King William County to live with my mom again. Since I only had 3 months of high school left, and because she's always been my rock of guidance, my mom made me finish it up. King William High School was a bit different than Olympic High School, in that the grade it started with was the 7th grade and was very, very rural. While at this school, I dropped all of my business classes and took home ec instead. I so seriously didn't want to have to think about anything. This was the time of the seam ripper incident. I was minding my own business, sewing my shirt, as that was the lesson of the class, when a young man approached me with a straight pen. He moved his hand up and down like he was going to poke me with it. Then he verbally stated that he could do it, and I told him, go away, 'cause I had done nothing to him. He continued his little threat, so I picked up my seam ripper and I showed it to him. I said, you see this? This is a seam ripper, and if you don't leave me alone, I'm going to stab you with it." He proceeded to hold out his arm and said, "Go ahead." So I did. I was so quick that there was no blood on my seam ripper. The young boy went and told the teacher what had happened, and the teacher called me up to her desk. I explained how it started and how I received permission to do it. She proceeded to send the boy to the office, and I went back to sewing. Once I graduated, I got a job with my brother at Godfather's Pizza, making pan dough early in the morning. We listened to Frank Zappa in the Dangerous Kitchen and had competitions as to who made the better pizza. At this point, regardless of my efforts to get him to stay, my brother chose to move in with my father. And so a new page, or rather a new path in life, opened up for both of us, as he chose to join the Navy and I started working at Shoney's. End page 4.